All right, let's get an update on the Russia investigation, at least in Congress. House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff is questioning whether the special counsel, Robert Mueller, is adequately investigating President Trump's ties to Deutsche Bank.
If the special counsel hasn't subpoenaed Deutsche Bank, he can't be doing much of a money laundering investigation. So that's what concerns me.
All right, Schiff has said that the bank is relevant because there are, quote, serious and credible allegations that the Russians may possess financial leverage over the president. Joining us now is Democratic Congressman Jim Himes. He serves on the Intelligence and Financial Services Committee. Both committees are investigating Deutsche Bank. Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning, Allison.
So, listen, give us a status report of what the House Intelligence Committee is up to. You know, some people have lost the thread after the holidays and the government shutdown. What is your main focus right now?
Well, I think two things are going to happen, Allison. First, there was an awful lot of stuff, and by stuff I mean documents we wanted to see, people who we should have interviewed, that we didn't get to do prior to the Republicans shutting down the investigation last year. And we saw the fruits of that vine, right? You know, Michael Cohen, it turns out, lied to us, any number of people lying to us. And so the first order of business, of course, is to get to the follow-up that came out of the interviews that we did prior to the Republicans ending the investigation. The second part, I think, and this is a little fuzzier, of course, because we're waiting to see what the special counsel comes out with. But as you heard the chairman say, it would appear, and I don't think anybody has any inside information because the special counsel is not talking really to anybody, it would appear just based on activities in courts and people who have said they've been subpoenaed that as Adam said, the special counsel is not necessarily looking at what might have happened with Deutsche Bank in particular and other sources of debt, possible sources of debt for the Trump organization.
But
so I do think that that'll be an area of interest.
On what Donald Trump may have done wrong with Deutsche Bank?
Well, you know, there's just questions about why Deutsche Bank appears to have been the one bank that would lend to the Trump organization at a time when pretty much no other bank would. And remember, there's also it's not just Deutsche Bank. Remember, there's the president's son's, I believe, statement when he said, gosh, the Russians are giving us all kinds of money. I can't remember the exact words he used, but he implied that they were getting plenty of money from the Russians. So the second part in particular, look, it may turn out that the Deutsche Bank thing, once we get into the information that there's nothing there, that's the reason for an investigation. But that statement that the Russians are providing liquidity, that they're providing capital, that bears some investigation, as we have watched over the years. Everybody associated with the Trump campaign or Trump administration lie about their contacts with Russia.
And do you worry that you're crossing the president's imposed red line about looking into his family finances?
Well, not really, right? I mean, if there is evidence of wrongdoing, no American citizen, from the lowliest to the president of the United States gets to tell the government what is subject to investigation. It is fair for the president and anybody else to expect that there will be no investigations of things for which there is no probable cause, for which there aren't really serious questions. That's fair. We all deserve that. But again, we're kind of past that with the Trump administration, with dozens of people now under indictment, in jail, going to jail, pleading guilty. Not every stone has been overturned with respect to the Trump administration, and that's what we need to do.
Very quickly, and I don't want to get too in the weeds, and this is a little bit, but it's in the New York Times this morning, so I want to ask you about it. There might in this meeting between Paul Manafort and Konstantin Kilimnik, and Konstantin Kilimnik is a Russian associate with ties to Russian intel. Here's how the New York Times frames it. Comments by one of Mr. Mueller's lead prosecutors suggest that the special counsel continues to pursue at least one theory, that starting while Russia was taking steps to bolster Mr. Trump's candidacy, people in his orbit were discussing deals to end a dispute over Russia's incursions into Ukraine and possibly give Moscow relief from economic sanctions imposed by the United States and its allies. Are you looking into that, and would that constitute collusion from what you've seen?
It's clear the special counsel is looking into that. Whether the committee does it or not, I think, is yet to be determined. But, Allison, you put your finger on something really important. We know one thing. The Russians wanted to help Donald Trump. You know, the Don Jr. meeting in Trump Tower, the exposure of the Clinton emails, of the Podesta emails. We know the Russians wanted to help Donald Trump. The question is, did Donald Trump or his people want to help the Russians? And we know that the Republican national platform was changed. We now have these allegations that you talk about in the New York Times that there might have been contact talking about sanctions. We know Michael Flynn called the Russian ambassador prior to the inauguration to say, hey, hold off on a response. We'll work this out. So, collusion is people helping each other. We know one side helped the other. Now we need to learn a little bit more about what the Trump organization, Trump campaign may have done, may have promised to the Russians.
I want to switch gears and ask you about Congresswoman Omar from Minnesota's latest tweet, because some people are calling it anti-Semitic. So she retweeted and responded to a tweet saying, would love to know who Congresswoman Omar thinks is paying American politicians to be pro-Israel, though I think I can guess, bad form, Congresswoman. That's the second anti-Semitic trope you've tweeted. And to which she responded, AIPAC. How do you see that?
Well, I think, this is sort of part of a larger issue that is twisting up the country now. We see it in Virginia. People in public office should feel comfortable opining on things. But if you have concerns about the state of Israel, make sure, especially given the nature of the history of Israel, the nature of anti-Semitism, it's perfectly legitimate to criticize Israel or to criticize the pro-Israeli lobby. Just please be careful to do it in a way that can't be interpreted as being anti-Semitic. Let's have conversations about race, which is what's happening now in Virginia. Let's all be especially careful about what we say and the fact that what I, for example, as a Northeastern white man might consider legitimate discourse may be heard differently by African Americans. So I think this is really a good example of the need for all of us to be very, very specific about what it is we are saying so that we don't come off as being anti-Semitic, as being racist, as being bigoted.
Very quickly, from where you sit, is the government going to shut down on Friday?
I'm still holding out hope, Allison, and I'm an irredeemable optimist. Look, I would tell you that I don't think so, but we've been out of D.C. They're apparently stumbling on the negotiations, so I don't think so. Allison, bottom line, a government shutdown cannot ever again be a tool of policy for the government of the United States. So I certainly hope not. And if it happens again, by the way, we've got to come together and make sure that this is just not something that anybody ever uses when they don't get their way in Washington.
Okay, Congressman Jim Himes, thank you very much. John.
All right, some big new entries into the Democratic field for president. What were the moves made this weekend? What do they mean going forward? And the new controversial statement from Senator Elizabeth Warren, that's next.